with us today we have Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, Chief Economist of GraphsandLaughs, for a presentation on the U.S. economy, remarkably resilient so far. Welcome, Elliot.
Erica, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's go. I got a lot to talk about, and I'm going to give you the bad news first. All right, here we go. So here, resilient so far. The economy's been terrific, absolutely stellar so far. Let's hope it continues. And I'm fearful that it won't, and I'm fearful that we'll wind up in a recession. Mild, short, but I'm fearful. So keep this in mind. And all recessions aren't the same. Some are really bad, like 1974-75 Arab oil embargo, 2008-9, and so on. No, this will be a regular recession. Let's look at what's good, what's bad, and where we're going. So first, this is overall GDP. Why are we doing well? We're doing well because 70% of GDP is C, household consumption, it's strong. Another 16, 17 is corporate investment and plant equipment inventory, it's meh. Then another 15, 16, 17 is government spending, meh. And then the last negative 2 or 3 is exports minus imports. So we're really going to rely on C. Now, we always rely on C, but now we're relying more on C because the other 3 pegs, smaller pegs on the stool, aren't doing so well. And why is C so strong? C is fabulous. It shouldn't be so good. The Fed raises rates, higher rates should clobber housing, construction, it hasn't. It should clobber new car sales, it hasn't. And it should crush general construction, which it hasn't because of the IIJA, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill, and the IRA bill, the clean energy cars and batteries and stuff like that. So the sectors that should have gone into the dumper haven't. So think of it this way. Before COVID, our economy was right here, right there. Then COVID comes and whacks our economy and moves it here. Now our economy is moving back to normal. Our spending patterns are changing. We're going back to the office more. We're going to travel more. We're buying less goods. We're consuming more services and so on. We're moving back. The longer it takes to move back, the lower the chances of a recession. Because this distance between where we are and where we're going is gasoline in the tank. The Fed is not refilling the tank by lowering rates, but we have gas right here. So if we still have 4, 5, 6, 7 more months and inflation falls enough for the Fed to lower rates, and they lower rates, no recession, yay. But if this is almost done and the Fed doesn't lower rates soon, then we probably end up in a small recession. So it's a game against time, this distance versus the Fed. This is automobile sales. They shouldn't be good. But look, they've sort of peaked out, but they've been doing very well for quite some time because there was pent-up demand. That pent-up demand was generated because when COVID came, we were all going to die. No one buys a car. Then we all moved to suburbia or rural America where there were no cars. We want more cars. Then supply chain snap and so on. You're in this returning from where you got hit from COVID back to normal. As long as you have this, there's pent-up demand. I read today people are going to go see Taylor Swift in Europe on her next tour because it's cheaper to go there. People are traveling, they're doing all this fun stuff, pent-up demand. Pent-up demand for cars, pent-up demand for houses, all kinds of weird stuff left over from COVID. So if you look at overall spending here, total spending, this isn't retail. Retail spending came out 3 days ago and it was not good. But who cares? Because we've already bought tons of stuff. Now we want to do things, have fun, enjoy ourselves, experiential things. If you put them together, it's fine. This line is completely unbroken, essentially. But there's a catch. And the catch is as follows. This line, this is spending, 12 trillion, 13, 14, is predicated on income growth. But income growth, as you'll see here, is much slower than there. Watch. This is pre-COVID. If you extrapolate this line, you'd end up there. We're $1 trillion short. Our income levels now are $1 trillion in real terms lower than they were before COVID had we kept the same trend. Why? They're lower because inflation clobbered us in 21, 22. Inflation peaked out at 9.1%, and who got like a 13% pay raise in 22? Or who gave a 13% pay raise in 22? Nobody did. Incomes declined. So how do we make up the $1 trillion? We're spending like we have the money, but we don't. Now, first, stimmy check 1, stimmy check 2, stimmy check 3. Mistake number 1, mistake number 2, mistake number 3. We should never have gotten that money, but that's besides the point. That was overstimulative, caused inflation, did all kinds of bad things to our economy, but I digress. So how do we manage? First, we don't save any money. I mean, look at that. 3.2% savings rates. Unemployment's 3.9%. It's a full employment economy or near full employment economy, and we can't save any money. Now, there's a saving grace here. The last time savings rates were so low was back in 05, 06, 07. What was that? That was the housing boom. So home prices were going up rapidly. We didn't save money. Okay, that's part of this. That ameliorates some of my fear, but I'm not thrilled that savings rates are at a near historic low with good employment, a good economy, a large budget deficit. We should be having much higher savings rates. This worries me, but we're pulling it down to spend. Then this shows us the wealth. So here was 07, 08, the last time we didn't save any money to speak of. House prices got ahead of themselves. Here, wealth is pretty high. So this ameliorates it, but again, doesn't eliminate the concern that I've got. Next, we're using the crap out of our credit cards. We shouldn't be doing that. Look at the speed, look at the slope of that line. And I'm going to show you later, we're defaulting on our credit cards too, so the combination is not all that good. So this is not great news. We're not saving, we're using our credit cards. On top of that, we're burning up our excess COVID savings. So during COVID, what's your name? Christopher. Did you travel much in mid-20 to mid-21, early 21, late 20, go on vacation to Europe or something, or Turkey or France or Australia? No, you saved money instead. You were busy as all get up because homes were selling like there was no friggin' tomorrow. Refi was going bananas. So we all had jobs, nowhere to go. We saved over $2 trillion. Now, it's gone. So our savings rates are declining, our credit card use is up, our stimmy check money's over. I'm not terrified here. This is not the end of the world. Don't get me wrong. It's just like this isn't super news. I'm a little nervous, just a little. I'm not like depressed. I'm not sackcloth and ashes, but I'm a little nervous. So now there's good news too. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of good news. There's a lot of deflationary pressures in the economy right now. This is a couple. I'll give you a couple. First, trucking costs per mile have fallen from here to there. They're coming down. They really are coming down. We're importing more stuff from China. China has deflation because their economy is weak and the supply is greater than demand, so prices are falling. They export stuff to us, they bring down prices. Our supply chains have gotten better, global supply chains have gotten better. Employment is increased, people looking for work and working are going up. There's a lot of good news here, all of it pushing down inflation. So inflation will keep coming down. The Fed's not going to raise rates. That's good news. Then there's this. Oil prices, they're going nowhere. I mean, nowhere. The last 2 years, 3 years, they've done nothing. Yes, that was the stupid Russian invasion of Ukraine, but short of that, look, the war in the Middle East, nothing happens. Why? The US is producing more oil, Canada's producing more oil, Brazil's producing more oil, Guyana's producing oil. They never produced any oil before, but they're on the verge of producing 1 million barrels a day in another year or two. So the Russians are producing less, no surprise there. OPEC is producing less, but this is fine, we're okay. So oil prices aren't going anywhere, supply chains are good, transportation costs are coming down, the cost of goods is declining. There's a lot of good news on the inflation front. The Fed will not raise rates, inflation will continue to fall. And then there's inventories, and they're doing pretty well too. I wouldn't say they're great, but they're pretty good. So look at this one, retailer inventories. Historically, they're about 1.5. That means you have 1.5 months of inventory. You sell, you have 100 shirts in the back of the house. You sell 65, 66 shirts a month. You got 1.5 months of inventory. In recessions, it goes up because sales collapse. So ignore that. It bounced around. 1.35 was the low. 1.5, 1.45, 1.45 when COVID starts. Okay, COVID starts. It goes up mechanically because of sales collapse. Okay, we got that. But then watch what happens. It falls and it gets lower. Right there, it's really low, right there. It's 1.1. You remember this 1.1. Do you remember this? You walk into a store, you want Kleenex, toilet paper, paper towels, chicken wings, a book. I needed a springform pan to make cheesecake. No, you could. And what happens when you can't get something? What happens to the price? Woo! So you're generating a lot of inflation. But now it's largely going away. I'll tell you how bad things were at that time. When we were here, right there at 1.1 inventory, the cost of a shipping container, renting a 40-foot corrugated metal shipping container to go from China to California across the Pacific Ocean was $1,700 before COVID. At the worst, it was 17,000. Now it's like $2,500 because the Houthis are taking some pot shots at box ships, and there's no rain in the rainforest in Panama and so on. But this is pretty good news. I wouldn't say it's great. I mean, it's not back to 1.35. I'm a little nervous, but it's not terrible. Now, there's problems. There are problems lurking. Manufacturing has been in a recession for like years. We're building car plants and battery plants for cars that apparently nobody really seems to want based on inventory numbers of the electric car companies and their pivot towards hybrids and gas, but I digress. But if you look here at overall factory utilization, you own a factory. Well, he's too busy. You own a factory. What's your name? Yeah. You know your name? Quinn. Very good. Okay, helpful. You own a factory. You make I don't know, bowls. And you used to run your factory at like 81%. Now you're at 77%. You're going to build more factory? Rates are high. What? Right, exactly. So firms don't want to build. That's it. So inventory is not back to where it normally is, and it's kind of petering out. You're not investing in inventory. And you see the data here. Oops, let's go back and look at the blue. That's inflation adjusted, so ignore this, the black one. That's not inflation adjusted. It's continuing to decline. We're not buying stuff. We bought tons of stuff during COVID, right? I bought pavers, I bought a pergola, I bought 37 television sets, so each room has 3, 4 Pelotons. I don't need anything anymore. So the demand for goods is weaker, right? And then inventory costs more to hold because rates are higher. There's a fear of a recession. Why the hell would you invest in this? You're going to wait till interest rates fall, bottom out, get lower, then you'll start to buy again. And there's more demand. But this isn't good for the economy. And then there's this. This is the third term in GDP. So we have household consumption, which is good. I'm fearful, future, but it's good because we're borrowing off our credit cards, using pent-up stimmy check, and our home prices are helping us spend, right? That's not the best reason. Corporate investments in plant and inventory, not so great. Then there's this. So there's 2 colors here. Red is fiscal policy, which in 23 was spectacular. It was so good because the budget deficit went way up. I'm not saying it should have, economically not a great idea, but it did, and it helped the economy. A third of the increase in GDP last year was 3.2% last year's GDP. At least a third, maybe a little more, came from the increase in the budget deficit. But this year, no increase in the budget deficit. So we're not going to get much stimulus from Capitol Hill. That's the red. And the blue remains fiscally, monetarily contractionary because rates have stayed high, right? The Fed's now saying higher for longer or longer for higher or whatever it is, right? So we're not getting relief on interest rates. So there's no fiscal stimulus and there's no monetary stimulus. This is going to weaken GDP. So GDP will fall from last year 3.2 to this year 2, 2.25. I mean, something like that. It has to because you're not going to get the goodies. Exports aren't. Now, then there's exports. And what's the problem with exports? Look at the red. The red is our chronic trade deficit. Pre-COVID, for 10 or 15 years, we were running at negative $45 billion a month, so $550 billion a year. We were buying more from abroad than we were producing, right? Then during COVID, you can see it gets really bad. It goes from negative 45 to negative 100 billion. That hurts GDP in the short run. Then it gets better, that's good, and now it's getting worse again. Why? Why? Look at exports in blue. Exports in blue are friggin' flat. They make southern Florida look like a mountainous country, There's nothing going on there. Because our dollar's strong. Why is our dollar strong? Because our interest rates are higher than Europe and Canada and New Zealand and Australia and EU. Why? Because our growth is faster. If you have higher economic growth, GDP, you're going to have higher interest rates. They're very causally and correlated. So our exports aren't doing really well, but our imports are now going up. They came down, but now they're going up. They're going up because why? Because you used to be able to only afford to buy crappy Wisconsin cheese. But now with the strong dollar, you can buy the real good stuff from Netherlands or France or Belgium or England or Italy or whatever. So we're buying more imports. So household consumption is strong, but I'm fearful. I is weak. Government spending is flat. Exports are weak. This isn't the underpinnings of a stellar economy. We need labor markets to stay strong, inflation to fall to keep it going. It could happen. I'm hopeful. I'm not expecting it. Here's historical data, and this is where it gets scary. If you cut me in half of my brain, economic brain, says, look, we have luck. We have this effect. And as long as this still has space and is moving towards that, and there's still distance, and the Fed soon lowers rates, we're fine. But history says the recession's it's going to come. There's no question. Don't even worry. Just sit back, relax, have a gin and tonic, and enjoy the recession. Look at this. I mean, this is leading economic indicators. I mean, they suck. Recession, 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 recession. It's friggin' 8 for 8 or something. Recession comes. Here, this is bank lending. This is for C&I loans. Every 3 months, the Fed asks loan officers in banks, hey, you making it easier or harder to lend money? The bottom is demand for loans. It's the inverse of the top. It's not so interesting. But the top is what matters. So 9 months ago, we were here. Recession, recession, recession. When 60% of banks, 50% are making it hard to get C&I loans, you wind up in a recession. Then over the next 6 months, it declined to 18%. That's better, but still recession, 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 bad quarter, recession. And came out last week, it's up at 20% now. Recession, 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 bad quarter, recession. Banks aren't lending. Leading indicators suck. Oh, here's defaults on credit cards, autos, and homes. Look at these default rates, delinquency rates. Credit cards, almost 9%, 8.5%, auto loans at 8%, and home loans are getting back to their pre-COVID levels. I mean, there's nothing terrible here, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sitting here going, yay. I'm a little nervous. The labor market's strong, we're gonna get there, inflation's coming down, we're gonna get there too. But this background just sort of gnaws at me. The history says we get the recession. I'll show you more history before we're through. Then there's this is more history. This is the Fed raising rates. The Fed raises rates, what happens? You usually end up in a recession. This shows you the last 13 times the Fed's raised rates, excluding the current time, when they began in 22, and then kept raising through mid-23, and they've kept it now flat for almost a year. Prior to that, 13 recessions we've had. 13 Fed rate hiking cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. Of those 13, 10 end up in a recession. 10. Miss, what's your name? Susan. You have, I'm making this up, you have some mild physical ailments, like tennis elbow or lower back pain or ankle that kind of bothers you sometimes. And pardon me?
That's not making it up, that's good.
Not all of them, hopefully, just one of them, hopefully. But at most, I mean, you're 25, you shouldn't have that many ailments. So you come to me, I'm a doctor, I'm gonna fix whatever ailment you've got. And I tell you, after I do surgery, no pain. And you go, wow, no pain, that's awesome. I say, let me show you the data. I did the surgery last week, 13 surgeries. 10 times the patient died on the table. 3 times they walked off, no pain. Either way, they had no pain, because if they're dead, no pain. And you go suddenly, Elliot, let's hold off on the surgery. I hate my husband, but I love our dog. Or whatever, my nieces, children, something, whatever. So the point is, this is 10 out of 13 times you get a recession. So banks aren't lending, leading economic indicators suck, the Fed's raising rates, 10 out of 13 times you get a recession. How come only 10? Why not 13? Sometimes you get lucky. 64 in a little purple dot, 84, and 94. What happened those 3 times? In 64, the Vietnam War was ramping up. So fiscal policy was very expansionary, even though monetary policy was contractionary. In 84, what happened? Energy prices collapsed. So monetary policy was tight, but filling your gas tank was cheap, suddenly like a tax cut. Yay! I can have air conditioning on more, heat my house a little warmer, spend more, go on a trip, do that stuff. Great. And what happened in 94? Anybody remember? My God, we have so absent-minded. Something called the tech boom was occurring. All the internet, all that stuff was happening. So your 401k was a 501k, 601k, 701k. Yeah, rates are high, who cares? Let's spend money, things are doing great, Amazon's doing well, Microsoft, all that kind of stuff. Great, dynamite. So sometimes you get lucky, and right now, I think we have luck in this back now moving effect. If this keeps going on for a while longer and then the Fed soon lowers rates, we're off the hook, no recession. It's not necessarily my base case, but it could entirely happen. I used to, like 6 months ago, I was an 85% chance of recession. Now I'm down to a 60% chance of recession. I think of myself as a wild bull right now. 60% recession, yeah, I'm a bull guy. I'm not a perma bear, I'm not. So then there's this. This is leading economic, this is an inverted yield curve. So normally the yield curve looks like this, upward sloping, right? The longer you borrow, the more you pay. The longer you borrow in years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, the more you pay in rates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? But not right now. Right now, a 6-month treasury pays how much? 5.25? I didn't look, but ballpark. What's a 10-year treasury at? 4.5? So if you want to borrow for 6 months, it's cheaper to borrow for 10 years and pay it off in 6 months. That's effing stupid. But it tells you monetary policy is whacked. That's where it's telling you. And the rates are going to come down, and therefore long-term rates are lower than short-term rates. But every time it happens, the blue squiggle goes above the red bar. And every time that happens, what happens? You get a friggin' recession. Except for 66. There, recession. That's 2 recessions, Paul Volcker 1, Paul Volcker 2. Recession. It's friggin' 8 for 8. So you have leading economic indicators that are no good. You got banks not lending that are no good. You've got an increasing interest rate cycle going on, 10 out of 13, and this 8 out of 8. And I'll show you more. So the history says you get the recession, but this luck, 64, 84, 94, what year are we in now? 4 years ending in 4, don't have recessions. Maybe the most powerful influence out there. I called Jay Powell, he didn't take my call. Now, how come no recession? It takes 2 years to get a recession using monetary policy. If Congress wants to create a recession, they can do it in 5 minutes. They can say, we're going to raise your taxes, and in anticipation of your higher tax bill, we are going to raise your withholding every paycheck by $200. You get paid twice a month, $400 a month, $5,000 a year. Our economy will go in about 5 minutes. Fiscal policy works fast. Monetary policy works slow. It takes 2 years. Why? You have a son, and you're too young to have an adult son, but we digress. But one of them is going to go to college, and you go, look, I don't want to send you to college because I want you to waste your time for a year and do nothing. I don't want to stress the educational system in America because Powell's raising rates. No. You have cancer. You want to go, I prefer to die. I don't want to stress the healthcare system out. No, you do what you got to do, right? Monetary policy only matters unless you're borrowing it for money for a car, for a house, or a building or something. So it's very infrequent that you bump into monetary policy. Think of it this way. We're in Florida. Marijuana is illegal in Florida, but hopefully on November 4th we have an election. We can then change that policy, by the way. Not that you know how I'm voting, but I digress. So after November 4th, you and I can be smoking marijuana together. Not that I've ever done that. But if I did, I would know the following. If you smoke marijuana, a blunt, a J, through a bong, I could go on. I read extensively on the topic. It takes about 7 minutes to metabolize. All right? If you eat marijuana, cookie, brownie, gummy, the list goes on, it takes about 40 minutes to metabolize. Smoking marijuana, 7 minutes, monetary policy. Eating marijuana, 40 minutes, monetary policy. Smoking, it's fiscal. Smoking is fast, 7 minutes, Congress. Eating it, slow, central bank. You eat a brownie, you don't get high in 7 minutes. It's not because it ain't working. It's because the system is different. Then, dummy, you eat a second gummy bear. Yeah, someone's nodding. Yeah, right. And then a third. You read the same article I read. Then you get hit like a freight train, and the world's spinning. You want to call 911, you forgot the number. The fact that the recession hasn't come doesn't mean it won't come. It may not come because of the luck. Luck matters, 64, 84, 94. But just because it hasn't come doesn't mean it's not going to come. And it takes 2 years. So 2 years, Fed began raising rates in March of 22. So in March of 24 is 2 years. So we're like now, we're in the middle of the 2 year, right in the middle, smack in the middle. So the Fed should be lowering friggin' rates, but they're not. And the longer they wait now, the more dangerous it gets. I mean, nothing terrible here. We'll look at the next slide. This is how bad the recession will be. And I don't see it being that bad. The Great Depression was the middle 43-monther and the following 13-monther together were the Great Depression. Since the Great Depression, there have only been 3 recessions that really matter. 74-75 Arab oil embargo, second Paul Volcker 81-82, when interest rates, prime rates hit what, 21%. If you're like, is there any grandfathers in the room here? No one raises their hand. You remember those times when your parents talked about rates being so high and all that kind of stuff. Right, and then most recently 08-09 housing bust. That's it. The other recessions are all 7, 8, 9 months, nothing really happens, no one remembers. Does anybody here, not old enough to remember the recession in 1970? Do you remember the first Paul Volcker recession of 1980? Not the bad one of 81, but the first one, no. How about 1990, the S&L crisis? Anybody really remember that one? No. How about the dot-com bust? Do you remember that one much? No. No one remembers these. They weren't meaningful. GDP declined a bit. Who cares? Big deal. Go on. So that's why I think if we get the recession, it's mild, it's short, it doesn't really matter, mildly, right? Now, let's talk about labor markets. They're the most important market. If labor markets are good, households spend. If households spend, firms hire and invest, and the economy's solid. If households get nervous, they start to save money. Then they stop spending. Firms lose confidence, they fire workers, reduce spending, and we go into a recession. Recessions are generated by a lack of confidence on the part of households and subsequently on the part of business. And yikes is the problem. So look at the data. The data is both good and terrifying simultaneously. Unemployment is 3.9%. That's really good. But it bottomed out about a year ago at 3.4. It's going up. Now look at this graph. Notice, it hit bottom, it went up, you had a recession. It hit bottom, it went up, recession. Recession, 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 recession. Unemployment bottoms, it starts to go up, ta-da! You get a recession. Why? You get a recession because the Fed goes, whoa, unemployment is very low. Workers are going to feel empowered. They're going to put their MP3 player on, listen to Johnny Paycheck, walk into the office and tell their boss to take this job and shove it. That's going to cause wages to go up. This is not a good thing. We'll have a wage price spiral. Let's stop it by raising rates. They raise rates, they keep rates too high for too long, and they generate a yes. This is classic textbook we're entering right now. It doesn't mean it will happen because 64, 84, and 94 happened, and this COVID is very bizarre. I mean, it's a really crazy thing. So the chances of avoiding the recession are palpable. The reason I got it wrong, partly thinking there'd be a higher chance of recession, was last year we were spending our COVID money like there was no friggin' tomorrow. Historically, we never did it. But COVID changed us and said, I might die, let's spend the money. So we spend the money. And then we had a huge budget deficit last year, which I didn't predict either. So those two things totally made my forecast wrong. This year, we don't get the budget deficit increasing. We're out of COVID money. But the economy's still lurching along. So this makes me nervous. When unemployment goes up, you generally get a recession. 8 for 8 or 9 for 9, right? Makes me nervous. But there's a saving grace here. This is it. Look at wage growth. Before COVID, right there's COVID, 3% per year annual wage growth. It was 3.5, it was 2.5 for a long time, but roughly 3. Ignore the far left of the graph. That's when we were coming out of the housing bust, and unemployment was, 7, 8, 9%. So employers could easily hire employees. They could put out an ad for a Ph.D. economist who's a lawyer and an MD will offer you $9 an hour split shift. You'd have like 9,000 people applying for 4 jobs. So 3% is normal. Forget this is COVID. When you fired your bad low-wage workers, wages went up. Then you rehired your crappy workers and wages came down. It's real, but it's irrelevant. But here, 6% wage growth. 6%. Historically, it's 3. Let me tell you a secret. 3% wage growth minus 1% labor productivity growth, so you're more efficient making, selling, building, whatever you make and do for a living. 3 minus 1 is, you're smart guys. Good, good, good. That's inflation. Wage growth minus labor productivity growth gets you inflation at the 30,000-foot level. There's noise, there's problems, and so on, but that's the story. Right now, we're at 3.9. It's coming down quite rapidly, even though unemployment is just 3.9. We have gone from 3.4 to 3.9, and yet wage growth is really falling pretty rapidly. This is a good sign. And there's even better news. 3.9, call it 4%. I'm going to show you some slides where there's luck. We have some luck here. First, notice this. This is quit rates. This is a manifestation of the luck. At the housing, the dot-com boom, 2.4% of the population quit their job every month. Every month. That's like 29% year over year, right? Here, the housing boom, 2.2% quit their job. That's like 26% quit their jobs over the course of a year. But at the peak of COVID, when the shipping containers cost $24,000 and inflation was going up at 9.1% year over year in June of 22, 3% of the population quit their job every month. People quit their job not because the day ends in Y. They quit their job because they hate their boss or they can get a job paying more money somewhere else. This is very correlated with wages. Look how fast it's coming down. It's now well below where it was pre-COVID. So you've got wage growth here coming down pretty quickly. You've got people quitting their jobs, dropping like a friggin' rock, even though unemployment's only gone up a little bit. What the hell's going on? There's luck. Here's the luck. First, the labor force participation rate among Americans is going up. There are more Americans working and looking for work than there's the highest amount since COVID began. That's 4 years ago. That's pretty good. So let's think about this. You have 2 job openings in your office. You have 2 applicants. They're both getting the job. But now, because more Americans are working, looking for work, you have 3 applicants. You can pick the best 2 and pay them at a lower rate because you can tell the people you're hiring, well, there's somebody else who will take it for less money and push them down on wages. But there's more luck. This is immigration. Now, we can argue the merits of immigration, legal and illegal. This is a deeply political topic. I'm not interested in having that conversation right now. My point is, now you have 2 applicants, you have 2 job openings in your factory. You used to have 2 applicants. Then because more Americans are looking for work, you have 3 applicants. This guy's leaving to change jobs right now. He's leaving. He's bringing someone with him. The 2 of them are going together. They're going to quit their job and get a new job, make more money. Good for you. I want 5%. You had 2 openings. Then you had 2 applicants. Then more Americans are looking for work. You have 3. Then immigrants, 4. You have now 4 applicants for the 2 jobs. Pick the best 2 and pay them at the lowest 2 wage rate. Ha-ha! Lower wages, more jobs, better GDP, more productivity. Well, it's a pretty good story. So this is helping. And then there's one more thing. Productivity. Remember I told you wage growth, 3% minus labor productivity, 1 gets you 2% inflation. Look at labor productivity in red. It's really high. It's the highest it's been since 2011. So that's 10 or 13 years, with the exception of this blip, right? I'm going to explain this blip right now. Let's figure out what this blip means. What's your name? Bob. He had to think for a couple seconds. Bob. Okay, Bob. When I used to own a pizza factory, and you were working for me at a pizza parlor, right? You would throw pizzas and make pizzas. And you were like the worst guy in the whole place. I had 5 guys. You were the worst. So when COVID came, no one wants pizzas. Who's buying pizza? No one's going out to eat at pizza parlors, right? So I had to fire someone who was the worst guy, Bob. Bob, it's been nice knowing you. Thanks very much. You're out. And since you're so bad, when you left, labor productivity went way up. And then a month and a half later, suddenly DoorDash, Uber Eats, they go crazy. People aren't eating pizzas in my store, but they're ordering pizzas. I go, Bob. Bob's terrible, but he's mine. Bob, please come back on bended knee, please come back. He says, sure. But of course, he makes 4 pizzas an hour. The other people make 24 pizzas an hour. When he returns, labor productivity collapses. So call this whole thing the Bob effect, okay? Yeah, you're a good egg, I appreciate it. So it's true, it's real. This guy's leaving, he's a low productivity guy too. Oh, you're getting a better pay, good for you, okay. So this is true, but like inventory's meaningless. So this labor productivity, if wage growth is 4% and now labor productivity becomes 2%, what's inflation? 2. I don't think this persists, but if it does, with the labor's pushing down wages, this is pushing down inflation. These are all tremendously good things that are happening to our economy. So we could conceivably miss the recession because of luck. These circumstantial things, immigration, weird stuff just happens. So let's be optimistic that we avoid it, and if we have it, it's going to be mild. That's really for sure. Now, is there inflation? Hello? Friggin' inflation. Yeah, there's tons of friggin' inflation. And now the inflation is not so bad. Remember, what's inflation? Inflation is the change in prices, not the price. So, when you were a kid, where's Grandpa? Here. When you were a kid, what was a chocolate bar? A nickel or a dime?
No, probably like
a quarter?
50 cents.
Oh, you're a liar.
He's a young grandpa.
He's a young grandpa, okay, yeah. So 50 cents, what's it now, $2?
Yeah.
It's 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, yeah. It's not going down. So you never get price reductions. Commodities do that, but generally no. So inflation says 50 cents to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to $1. That change every year is inflation. But now it's at $1. If it stays at $1, there's no inflation. The prices are high, but there's no inflation. There's a difference. Don't confuse the two, right? High prices are a problem. Rising prices are worse, right? Because you have high prices and they're getting higher. So this is the story. This is CPI, PCE, what the Fed thinks of as, oops, wrong direction. What the Fed thinks of as inflation. Oops, sorry, my apologies. Look what's going on. It's coming down. Inflation, as measured by the PCE, not the CPI. In this index, housing is only 16 or 17% of the index, not 35 like CPI. Because housing isn't that big. Because most people already own their house and have a fixed rate mortgage, right? So if you look at core, which is red, I'll get to the difference between red and blue in a second, it's 2.8. The Fed wants the red to be 2. Okay, 2.8, we're getting close. Now, what's the difference between red and blue? Blue is headline, including food and energy. And you say to me, how can you be so stupid to ignore food and energy? Without food and energy, I'm dead and I'm cold. Or in Florida, dead and hot. You ignore it because it bounces around. The blue bounces around like a basketball or a yo-yo. The red's much more placid. So the blue has a lot of noise. The red has much more signal. You want signal, you don't want noise, so look at the red. Moreover, what drives blue to bounce around a lot? Food and energy prices. Well, what drives food and energy prices? War, in the short run. War, nice to you come back, thank you. War and weather. So the Fed's going to induce a recession because there's a crop failure in Iowa and cereal prices go up or soybeans or something get more expensive and that causes other prices to go up. No, they're going to let it go because next year there'll be a bumper crop, prices collapse, farmers go bankrupt or something, right? No, the Fed's going to ignore it. So if you're going to ignore it and it bounces around, well then don't look at it, look at red. Red's coming down. It's coming down more slowly. Why is it coming down more slowly? Just the last couple months. If you look at the red line, you can see it falls rapidly, and then early in the year it starts, so it goes really fast, it's falling. And the last couple of months, it does that, right? It went from there to there. Why? Because weird things are driving inflation. First, home insurance has gone way up, right? What else? Car insurance has gone way up. Raise your hands if you've experienced car or home insurance, crappy, wild, nutty, mean, nasty friggin' inflation. And then healthcare costs have gone up. The Fed can't control this stuff. And then there's the weird way rents come into it. I can talk about that later outside. We can talk about that if you want to chat about it. Outside of that, there's no inflation. If we measured inflation the way the Europeans measured inflation, we'd be at 1.9. I'm not saying that we should do it. The point is it's coming down, it's staying elevated for weird reasons, and insurance costs often readjust in January, right? Jan, Feb, early in the year. So you're getting some weird seasonal effects that are going on. I think inflation falls. So what's the Fed going to do? The Fed's going to do nothing because they are lazy bums. These guys barely work, and they know nothing, and they generate recessions most of the time. But when I used to work at the home builders way back when, Ben Bernanke came to Capitol Hill. He was number 2 at the Fed behind Greenspan. And he said in like late 07, early 08, he said something like, the problems in the housing market are well contained to the housing market. Whoa. He might want to revisit that one. Yet 13 years later, or 14 years, he wins the Nobel Prize in economics. The guy's a freaking genius. He doesn't know the future any better than you, I, or that little inert bag over there. No one knows the future. You make mistakes all the time. So the Fed's going to do nothing now, and I think make a mistake. So the Fed funds rate's 5 3/8. On May 1st, they kept it at 5 because they do nothing. These guys work for a day and a half every 6 weeks, and they don't even do anything. They just talk, and they make no decisions. It's such an easy job. I wish I had it. On June 12th, they're going to meet again at 2 p.m. They're going to do nothing. Then on July 31st, they'll meet again at the end at 2 o'clock. They'll put out they'll do nothing. These people do nothing. I'm envious. They get paid well, high status, no work. Hello? I'm your guy. So look, the question becomes, how much does the Fed really cut this year? You know, you tell me they're going to cut once. Yeah, it's plausible. Somewhere in like November, twice maybe September and December if inflation falls faster. Yeah, plausible. No cuts, sure, possible too. A raise? No raising. So you have to think about possible 1 cut, 2 cuts. That's really the view you should be thinking about right now. Maybe as many as 2, maybe none, no hikes. Get on with your business now. You're not Wall Street traders. You don't care about 25 bips. Not a big deal here, right? It's not going to change the world. That's where I think we are. Now, one more reason why the economy is so strong. We've talked about autos, we've talked about pent-up demand, we've talked about credit cards, wealth increases, and so on, stimmy checks. This is the money supply. Banks don't lend right now. We talked about that earlier, right? C&I loans. Look at the money supply in the bottom right-hand corner. It's shrinking by a lot. When it shrinks by that much, historically, you get a recession, a recession, a recession. 3 recessions back in the 70s. A long time ago, Grandpa, but you remember. Maybe too much, I don't know. Or blow, I don't know, whatever. But anyways, this should cause a recession, but it hasn't yet. Why? Because of this. Everybody at that time here was refinancing their house, their boat, their car, their plane, and on. And then they bought a building. They bought an investment house or a second property or something and got a 3% 40 million a year loan. So now you don't care because you're insulated. Well, this insulation gives you more runway. That's this effect. Now, at some point, that commercial property has to be relended. You have a 5-year on it, right? So you got to refi, and you're in trouble. But until you have to refi, you bought it in 21, you got till 26. If rates fall by next year, you're okay. Otherwise, you're hosed. So there's more runway. All this stuff is the luck that's keeping us out of the recession penalty box. Let's close on housing, and then if you have time, we'll take Q&A. Hopefully not. I'm joking. The problem with housing is there are no houses to sell. I talk to realtors frequently, and they go, you know, Elliot, there's no houses to sell. And I go, it's your fault. There are how many realtors in America? 1.5 million. What if all of you decided to sell your effing house tomorrow? There'd be now 2.5 million homes for sale. Now there's 1 million. Then suddenly supply would go up, sales would be good, you'd be making plenty of money. You're sacrificing yourself to save a few $100 a month on your mortgage, you idiots. You are the problem. You're all a bunch of SOBs. But nonetheless, I'm going to hold on to my cheap mortgage. No, I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to sell. I'll wreck my career. I don't care. I'll save $400 and go bankrupt. But that's okay. That's the problem. Now, the inventory is going up. Texas, Florida, a bunch of states are showing increases in inventory. And here's the kicker. Pay attention here. I'm nervous about something. If you see increases in inventory, like you're starting to see now, and interest rates remaining high, that's a bad combination. That could cause prices to decline. If we see increases in inventory and declining interest rates, okay, fine, we're happy. More people are going to come in, and there'll be more homes to buy. But if there are more homes to buy and not a lot of buyers, this could be a problem. So I'm a little bit nervous that we could see some small price declines in prices in areas where inventory is starting to go up. Now, even if it goes up, it's still well low. I mean, you look at a place like Tampa, for example, inventory's up like 100% year over year, 80%. You're still well behind where you were before COVID began. But if it persists, this could become a problem, so pay attention to that. Next, this is existing home sales. They're pretty low in the low 4 millions, but that's as low as they get. If you look historically, 94, 95, when there was no recession, but it hammered housing, you fell below 4 million briefly. That was the housing bust. You barely fell below 4 million. Then Congress gets involved and stimulates home buying once, twice, then the program ends and demand collapses. So ignore all that together. Then there's COVID, for God's sake, and it stays at 4 million. Then Powell starts to jawbone the market, saying he's going to raise rates. It hits 4 million. Only when interest rates began to approach 8%, did you begin to see home price sales fall below 4 million. My point to you is whether there's a recession or not doesn't matter. You've already experienced a recession. Housing sales activity was 6 million in 21, it was 5 million in 22, and it was 4 million in 23. You've seen a 33% decline in volume here. You've experienced a recession, it's done. It won't get less than it was in late 23. That's the dead bottom. It will go up. We can argue 4.2 this year, 4.3, yeah, whatever it is. But it ain't gonna be that bad because rates are coming down, there's a little more inventory, okay, you'll manage. And people have to friggin' move. You can't sit and wait your whole life for Powell to move. Your estate's selling your house because you're dead, right? Death, disease, divorce, debt, realtors love these things, right? You just had octuplets. You can't live in a 2-bedroom place anymore with octuplets. Those fertility drugs really worked. Then first-time mortgage apps are low because volume is low and there's cash. So understand where you are in the cycle. You're back at 94 levels. Refi, of course, is dead because interest rates are very high. No one's going to refi from 3 to 8 willingly unless 3 to 7, unless they have to. Sometimes they have to. Credit cards, auto loans, students, they're putting their kid through college, whatever it is, right? So that happens. And the key thing so far is house prices keep going up because there's no inventory. Even though rates are high, inventory's up. Inventory's down, pushing price up. And there's not much demand for housing out there, but there's no supply at all. That pushes prices up. And what does this result in? Look at single-fam construction right now. Stellar. Multifam was good, it's weakened. Single-fam was bad, and now it's gotten good. With single-fam good, and car sales good, and the money supply having increased, and excess COVID savings, and credit card use, and so on, our economy's propelled forward despite high rates. Now, the multifam market struggles. You can see vacancy rates are up. You can see number of units under construction is massively bigger than before COVID. So you're going to have an onslaught of supply of multifam pushing rents down. And you can see rents have gone from very rapid appreciation to zero. And interest rates are higher, so vacancy rates are up, not a happy place. But even if we get a recession, as I told you earlier, this is not going to matter much to the housing market. There'll be no foreclosures and defaults because home prices keep going up. 14 years ago, demographically, we were in the trash can. Now it's great. 14 years ago, we were overbuilt by 1.5 million homes. Now we're underbuilt by 3 or 4 million homes, right? 14 years ago, your dog could have gotten a credit card and a home mortgage. Now double co-signers, each making $250,000, they can't get a friggin' loan. I'm joking. 14 years ago, we all had crappy FICO. Now the FICOs are pristine. 14 years ago, at the worst of the housing bust, 25% of homes with a mortgage were upside down. Right now, it's 2%. That's 1 million homes. If any of you think you're going to make money going into foreclosure business like you did in 08, 09, you're not. There aren't going to be any because home prices keep going up and people put 10% down payments. Moreover, builders can't afford to build a cheap house because the cost of building is 40% up since COVID began. Lastly, who's going to build a damn effing house? Unemployment's at 5%. And you have the IIJA and the CHIPS bill and the IRA bill. There's no one to build houses. So at the lower level, market level intro housing, forget about it. Last but not least, look at where the new home construction is, where population growth is. This is the most rapidly growing states by number. Texas is the south, south, west, south, west, west. So 7-3 south. This is by percentage, which is more fair because you can't compare Delaware, or Rhode Island to Texas. It's not fair, So look here. South, south, Texas, south, west, south, Delaware. Joe Biden goes home. It doubles the population. South, south, west, south. People are moving to 5 states. They're moving to the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee in the south, Texas, and a couple states in the Intermountain West. That's where the population growth is strongest and biggest, and that's where you're going to have the biggest success going forward if you're open to moving to where the population growth is strongest. Let's wrap it up. 24, it'll be an okay year. We might have a mild recession towards the end. We'll see. The Fed stopped raising rates. Job growth, monthly job growth numbers should decline. Inflation will stop decelerating. The Fed is not going to raise rates again. And I want you to follow unemployment and inflation. Inflation because it's #1 enemy. And unemployment because if it keeps going up, you've got a recession on your hands. It has to stop going up. It cannot continue. Last but not least, this is my name, my cell number, my phone number, my Twitter handle, website, email address. I put out 70 words 5 days a week on the economy. No graphs, no ads, no charts, no links, no photos. If you want to get it, I'm not sure you do. Text the word bow tie, 1 word, to the 5-digit number 66866. Be prompted for an email address. You'll hear from me every single day, Monday through Friday, until you die. And I'll be outside taking questions. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.